Hello everyone and welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are digging into what is honestly, hand on heart, the absolute highest return on investment habit for product teams, engineering teams, and really anyone making complex, high-pressure choices. We're talking about documenting your product reasoning using a PM decision log. If you've ever had that sinking feeling that your team's hard-earned knowledge is just kind of slipping through your fingers, yeah, you are in exactly the right place. Let's get into it.
Why did we build it this way? Man, what a visceral, universally relatable question, right? It's the one question that literally haunts almost every single product team out there. Picture this. A new engineer joins the team, looks at a specific feature, and just innocently asks this incredibly simple question.
And then, absolute crickets. 6 months after the code actually shipped, nobody can answer them. The folks who made the call? Well, they might have moved on to different teams or just left the company entirely. Or, honestly, maybe they're sitting right next to you, but they just can't remember the exact constraints they were dealing with at the time. All that vital context has completely vanished into the product management void. Which brings us to our first main point, the vanishing decision problem.
Okay, so let's dive into this. Where are these product decisions actually disappearing to? And why is this such a huge systemic problem everywhere? Look, every product team makes hundreds of decisions a quarter, but look at these common graveyards. Decisions just vanish into these endless, totally unsearchable Slack threads. Or they get buried deep in unstructured meeting notes that, let's be real, nobody's ever opening again. Or, and this is the most dangerous one, they're trapped in one person's head. When that person leaves, or even just goes on a 2-week vacation, your team's institutional memory basically just walks right out the door with them.
And here is where it really hurts. Say a stakeholder challenges a direction you chose like 8 weeks ago. Because you don't have a clear record, you end up spending half of your current sprint completely relitigating a decision that was already made. You're wasting precious time, your sprint goes totally off the rails, and worst of all, you can't even find the original evidence you used to make the call in the first place. It is so incredibly frustrating, right?
So let's move on to this next concept. Artifacts are not decisions.
To really solve this, we have to clear up a massive misconception. The core problem here isn't that you lack discipline. Actually, scratch that. Most PMs are super conscientious. The real issue is a total misunderstanding of what we're actually supposed to be documenting. Think about your standard artifacts. A product requirements document, or PRD, that documents the what of what you're building. A technical spec documents the how. A roadmap documents the when. But none of those capture the why. Why did we choose feature A over feature B? Why this specific trade-off? Only a dedicated decision log captures the why.
So here's the absolute crucial point. When that why is missing from your documentation, your team completely loses the ability to update past decisions intelligently. Think about it. If conditions change, but you don't know why a choice was originally made, you're stuck. You basically have two bad options. You either defend the past decision blindly, or you abandon it completely randomly. Neither of those is good product management for sure. Plus, your new team members, they're forced to just repeat the exact same past mistakes because the reasoning isn't written down anywhere.
All right, let's look at the anatomy of a decision log.
Now that we really get the cost of losing the why, let's get super tactical. We're going to look at the exact mechanics of how to build a log that actually works. And look, you do not need a complex system here. The format matters way less than these 5 essential fields. Number 1, the statement, just one single sentence stating the conclusion. Number 2, the context, 2 to 4 sentences explaining the signal that made the decision necessary. 3, and please pay close attention to this one, the options considered. You absolutely must include the rejected alternatives. This is the most frequently skipped field, but honestly, it's the most valuable when someone questions the decision later. 4th, owner and date. This is just for operational clarity, not to point fingers or punish anyone. And finally, number 5, the review trigger. I actually want to pause on that last field for a second because the review trigger is literal magic. It's simply stating what specific conditions would cause us to revisit this decision. Adding this one single element breathes life into the whole log. It makes sure your decisions are actually revisited when market conditions or technical realities change. It turns what could just be a dusty, boring historical record into a living, breathing tool for your entire team. Of course, a decision is really only as good as the evidence backing it up, right? You'll typically log 4 types of evidence. Starting at the top, behavioral data. This is the absolute gold standard because it reflects actual user actions, not just what they claim they'll do. Next is qualitative research, like user interviews, which is super essential for getting that context. Then, competitive signals. These are really useful reference points, but they shouldn't be your sole justification. And finally, assumptions. Listen,
It is perfectly okay to make a decision based on an unvalidated belief, but you've got to flag it explicitly as an assumption and include a solid plan to actually track it.
Let's jump into 3 decisions worth logging every sprint.
So what exactly should we be writing down? You definitely don't want to log what color you painted a minor button. That's just overkill. Instead, we're going to use the rule of 3 to spot the specific types of decisions that practically demands documentation. Here are the 3 categories you really must log. Number 1, scope decisions. Anytime you cut a feature from a release or narrow down a brief, log it. It totally stops that inevitable future argument of, wait, why didn't you build it? Number 2, direction changes. If you reverse a previous decision or override a stakeholder, log it so you have a traceable record. And number 3, bets with uncertain payoffs. When you make a call based on an unvalidated belief, log it as a bet. That way, 3 months down the line, you can look back and compare what you thought was going to happen against reality.
Moving right along to making the habit stick.
Look, knowing what to do is one thing, right? But actually doing it consistently, totally different ballgame. So let's talk implementation. How do we make this habit stick without turning it into this massive, burdensome administrative chore? Well, 5. That is the magic number. It literally takes 5 minutes. The absolute best way to make sure this gets done is to just anchor it to your existing sprint retrospective. Take just 5 minutes at the very end of your retro and ask the team, hey, what major decisions did we make this week that need to go in the log? That's it. It's incredibly lightweight.
Daily integration is the real key to making this pragmatic. Every PRD should have a related decision section that links directly to your log. During your sprint planning, just check your review triggers to see if any past decisions need a second look. And please, whatever you do, do not wait for the perfect format. A messy 5-column shared spreadsheet that people actually use is infinitely better than some beautiful, highly complex Notion setup that just sits there completely empty.
Let's see how this plays out if your team works remotely or asynchronously. For async first teams, the decision log isn't just a nice-to-have thing. It is literal load-bearing infrastructure. Pioneers in this space like Basecamp, GitLab, and Automatic, they use written logs as their primary governance tool. A decision gets written up as a proposal. There's a 48-hour comment window, which completely replaces endless synchronous debate, thank goodness, and then it becomes binding. It turns the whole onboarding process into reading through a fascinating history, rather than forcing new hires to go interrogate every single veteran on the team.
Which brings us to our final section, 3 things to do this week.
We've definitely covered a lot of ground today, so let's drive this explainer toward a super actionable wrap-up. Here is exactly what you can do immediately. Step 1. Literally today, right after this, open a simple shared doc, create those 5 columns we just discussed, and log the last 3 significant calls your team made. Boom! You've officially started your log. Step 2. In your very next PRD, force yourself to add a related decision section. Step 3. Put a recurring 5-minute slot at the end of your retros specifically dedicated to asking what isn't written down yet. Taking just these 3 steps will immediately stop you from remaking the same decisions twice.
Now, as you scale this habit up, you might eventually want dedicated tooling. The source material mentions Specky, for example, which is an AI workspace designed specifically to make this product reasoning permanently visible. It actually connects decisions directly to experiments and outcomes in this really cool living graph. But remember, the tool itself matters way less than just building the habit.
I want to leave you with this really powerful summary quote straight from the source material. It says, "A decision log doesn't just record history, it makes the team's reasoning transferable." And honestly, that is the ultimate payoff here. It's all about empowering your colleagues, drastically speeding up onboarding, and making sure your team's collective intelligence is actually compounding over time.
So, I'll end with this slightly provocative thought. Take a hard look at your own team's workflow this week and ask yourself honestly, are you actually building products and moving forward, or are you just spending half your time remaking the exact same decisions twice? Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. Get out there, start your log, and start capturing that reasoning.